The other thing, Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer. Schumer is effectively arguing, and he may not be wrong, right here. Okay, right here. I'll play it. Now, I haven't seen this clip. I'm going by what is featured in the write-up on it. But Schumer has been getting a lot of heat. A lot of heat. Deserved, by the way, heat. Because Schumer led his party down this garden path that he was going to shut the government down in opposition to the continuing resolution that was coming out of the House. He had the power to do it if he was going to use the filibuster to just gum up the works. I'm not going to allow this to go through. Democrats in the House was like, do it, shut it down. Which is a wild place for Democrats to be in, because usually they're the ones who are saying they don't want the government to be shut down. But in this case, they were screaming for the shutdown. You get to the Senate, Schumer's like, we're going to shut it down. We're not going to accept this. This is unacceptable. We're going to stand up to Trump. Behind the scenes, it was understood that they were not going to do this. They were not going to shut it down, despite all of this gyrations towards him pretending that they were going to do this. Schumer goes up and capitulates all at once. We can't shut it down. Shutting it down is worse. And while I need to stand up for, whatever, I capitulate. Anger, fervor, screaming, yelling, outrage from his own caucus at two things. One, being led down the path to plank that way. And then after being led down the plank and getting queued up for something to be walked back. It's humiliating. It makes your party look like it's in shambles, which is a clear reflection of what is reality at that point. Schumer goes on to explain this and to justify this. This is him.
Angered by, and we've seen it described as a civil war, as a train wreck. Many Democrats believe, if you have a government shutdown that will force President Trump and Republicans to the negotiating table, why not use your vote to push back and fight?
Because the idea that they would go to the negotiating table is they don't do it. This is a new group. This is not the old group. Let me explain. I knew when I took this vote, there'd be a lot of protests, but I felt I had to do it for the future, not only of the Democratic Party, but the country. Because as bad as that CR bill was, and it was bad, a shutdown is 10 times worse. Let me give you what happens.
Been blamed on the Democrats.
And you're right, Gail. But can I just explain
what? But you had been saying you were not going to vote. I think people were upset with you, and people are very upset with you because you had led people to believe that, no, I'm going to vote against.
Okay, well, let me explain why first the shutdown is terrible. People ought to know that.
Now, Schumer points out we will get blamed if we did this. They would blame us. They would say that we were at fault. They would say Democrats were the ones that were responsible for shutting down the government. And his argument is, look, they won't negotiate with us on this. He said it in the very beginning. Yeah, in the old days, the Republicans might have felt some pressure because the government was closed and that it was their government because they had the House, the Supreme Court, Senate, Republican, House of Representatives, and Supreme Court and presidency. That they may feel pressure on them because it's their job to keep the government open, considering they have all of the houses and the presidency. But they're not going to negotiate with me. That's his point. We are not. This is not going to be a situation where they feel pressured to reopen the government. Trump is going to do what Trump does. Elon Musk is going to do what Elon Musk does. While the government is closed, Elon Musk is not a government worker in that sense. He is going to keep working and doing what he does. And so, A, we're getting blamed. B, they're not negotiating with us, which means this could go on for months. So we are in a weaker position in this. And shutting it down is a worse outcome than keeping it open. People's issue, though, more than anything else, is that he pretended as if he was going to do it and then didn't do it. And Schumer seems to miss that point over and over again when this comes up. It's yes, that you capitulated. Yeah, there's that. But they're going after you for capitulating because you pretended as if you weren't going to capitulate. Schumer doesn't seem to get that very basic point as he goes gallivanting around the country defending the fact that he capitulated. in the humiliating or most humiliating way possible. What Schumer is responding to, at least what I think it is his base wants them to fight. But they don't know what fight means, which is Schumer's issue. There is no substance. There's no core. They've reshaped themselves into what Garland calls a cult, and I'll accept it. I'll use that. A cult that is effectively a money laundering operation masquerading as a political party. And because they're masquerading as a political party, they've decided that Donald Trump is the thing to which they need to affiliate and organize themselves around. But that is not the same thing as having substance. Substance is different. Substance is, I have a value set that I'm going to fight for, promote, and that value set is leading me to try to get various political objectives accomplished. And in trying to get those political objectives accomplished, how I maneuver in this political space, how I maneuver in the world, the things that I push for, the things that I fight on, that guides me. That's not what's happening right now. What is happening is they want us to fight back against Trump. We have no way of doing that in real terms, short of shutting the government down, oddly enough. And otherwise, we're going to be slow walked. They're getting slow walked. The public hates them. The public doesn't understand what they're doing. They seem to be in shambles. They are in shambles. But I guess I'm trying to point to the point that the reason they're in shambles is because there's no organizing principle to which they are working on. And I would argue the reason they lost is because there's no organizing principle to which they're working on. It's one thing when you're fighting for the working class and they see you're fighting for working class and they see it because of what you're doing, what you're saying, what you're moving on, what you're signaling to people that you care about in regards to your priorities. That is different than what they are and what is happening right now. And they don't seem to fully be aware of that. What they seem to think is it's messaging, because that's what they seem to have thought for all of these years. That's what they've become so accustomed to. And when they came in contact with Trump, well, in their minds, okay, well, the issue is still messaging. We're still the party of the working class. We're still the ethical group that got civil rights into the mainstream and got it to be this kind of established order as what it is now, even if Trump doesn't necessarily like that. It is what it is, what it is. And I don't even think he's necessarily pushed back against it. It's not like he's going after gay issues or black issues. I know DEI, but DEI, I think it's a little bit different, but whatever. I'm saying that they have become so accustomed to the way to which they operate that they can't accommodate the fact that the way in which they operate is no longer valid. There's no core. That is the issue. And yeah, that is my refrain. And I would stick with that. They have no core. And because they have no core, they don't know what to go back to as an organizing principle in order to push back against Trump. You're in a rebuilding phase. You have to accept that. It is what it is. The American public has found you to be lacking and found you to be so lacking that they're willing to put in somebody like Trump in order to make the point that much clearer. You are found wanting. You have to do something with that. Schumer is just the outward expression of what I'm just saying. That's all. Democrats are hitting him on it. Schumer is bewildered by it. They don't know what to do about it. And I'm saying the reason you don't know what to do about it is because there's no other organizing principle short of Trump that guides behavior, guides actions, guides words. It's not there. It's a cult that is purely a funding mechanism for a political party that has fundamentally lost the plot and has fundamentally lost the way. They don't know what to do. They're in a quagmire. They're in utter shambles. Schumer is just a visible experiential representation of that. This clip is amazing. This clip is amazing. There's another issue on this too that feeds into this. Gaza. Schumer went on TV and has repeated various propaganda on the issue. And of course, he in order to do this. And I would wager to you there's not going to be any pushback on this, despite the fact that this is completely false. It is shown to be false. And yet Schumer completely repeats it.
It was really never that bad until 2017. And until October 7th last year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
When the Jews were attacked.
when the
by
Jews were
Hamas.
attacked by Hamas
Right.
initially, and the women raped, and the little babies' heads chopped off, and all of that, brutal.
That didn't happen. That didn't happen. Also, I want to point out Israelis were attacked that just so happened to be Jews. That is different than saying Jews were attacked. Israelis were attacked because Israel is occupying Gaza. That's why they were attacked. The notion that you would say things weren't that bad to October 7th, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. I would wager to you that the people on the ground who were living under Israeli occupation will not come to the assessment that things were not that bad. Otherwise, October 7th wouldn't have happened if indeed things were not that bad. I'm making the point of saying this idea of, well, things weren't that bad until October 7th. You're wrong. You're out of your mind. You're lying. You're taking a certain point of view as a Zionist. Well, everything was great. They weren't. You were in an apartheid state running an open air ghetto. That is what is taking place right now. That is what has been taking place. So this notion of, oh, things were great until October 7th, wrong. Jews were attacked. They were Jews, but they were Israelis that just so happened to be Jews. They weren't attacked because they were Jewish. They were attacked because they were occupying. There's a difference in those things. And beheaded babies show it. Women raped, even the New York Times couldn't find it. They would have been happy to find it. Couldn't find it. Chuck Schumer is making this up. I'm saying this is part of the problem. The Democratic Party was perfectly fine with funding and backing a genocide for a year and a half. And yet wouldn't even talk about it, wouldn't even bring a Palestinian on the stage. And I strongly suspect that many of the people that were fired on MSNBC, Democratic Network, were fired because they were covering this issue as tepidly as they were covering it. Mehdi Hassan was hitting it harder. I'm pointing out that Joanne Reed and some of the other people that were covering the issue in the tepid fashion in which they were covering it were fired because that level of dissent was not allowed, not permitted by the party itself. And yes, MSNBC is an arm of the Democratic Party. They funded, Joe Biden spent like 70 or 80% of the murders, the killings that Israel was going through was funded by Joe Biden, backed by the Democratic Party that wouldn't say anything against it. That is a problem. A lot of people that did not show up, millions, did so because of this issue. They just stayed home. The Muslim community ended up voting for Trump because of this issue. They either voted for Trump or stayed home. Democrats did not get that vote. That vote was necessary. All of those votes were necessary, considering they lost millions of people who just didn't show up because they didn't see anything to show up for. And you would come on and continue this lying Zionist propaganda that you are effectively running with and that the party is effectively backed, either implicitly or explicitly. This is a problem. The majority of the run and file Democrats think either a genocide is taking place, either Israel has gone too far, or Israel is effectively a murderous regime. To have the leadership coming out, taking a different tact than what most of the Democrats think is problematic to Democrats' operation and function as a political entity, considering most of your base disagrees with your assessment. All of these things are problems. All of these things bespeak of a political party that is fundamentally in shambles and at war with itself. You can call it a civil war, you can call it whatever you want to call it. I'm saying that there are fundamental problems with the Democratic Party that make it a non-viable vehicle of operation in regards to getting political objectives accomplished, whether it's on this issue, whether it's on the war issue in Ukraine, where they are still screaming to keep the war going, or whether it's on domestic priorities of increasing the minimum wage, defending and expanding Social Security, Medicare for all, and increasing medical capabilities of this country, even if it's a public option. But to push and fight for those items, those are not things that are on the board to fight for. Even when they passed that $300 for kids, something that was good, within a year, gone. Your party is broken, sir. You are just a living image, a living experiential picture of the fact that is indeed broken. It is not messaging. It is not you be capitulating in the moment. It is not you just losing to Donald Trump. All of those things are indicating something else that none of you are seeing because you are in such a bubble that you just cannot see outside of the fog of your own awesomeness in your own eyes. The American public doesn't see you that way. You may see yourself that way. They do not see you that way. Something needs to fundamentally change. It's not just leadership, it's the party itself. Will they become aware of that? I don't know. Should Chuck Schumer shut the government down? Who knows? I don't really care. That is not the key part of their issue. Shutting the government down is a specific item. The party is the issue. What it represents and what it doesn't represent is the issue. And until they get back to some level of basics, until they, have their come to Jesus moment, none of this changes anything. Trump may go too far. And you may have a situation of the public going back to Democrats because they feel that they didn't get what they want in Trump, and not just not get what they want, would actually go back to Democrats because they're pointing to something that Trump actually did. That doesn't say anything about the party itself, nor does it say any substance or anything else. It's purely a political move to try to regain political clout and political power. By the same token, the fact that a Republican won means a Republican can win, and somebody who's a better orator, better arbiter, better explainer than Trump, more sophisticated than Trump, could win. I put J.D. Vance in that box, believe it or not. Be aware. They're thinking that Trump is going to lose in the midterms, that he's going to go too far, that the public is going to want to restraint. And usually that does happen. But usually a Republican doesn't get the popular vote either. And you cannot depend upon that. And I don't want them to be able to win in the midterms if indeed nothing substantially has changed. I don't see anything changing. Chuck Schumer, the mainstay of your Democratic Party. And of course, there's also Bernie Sanders. I'm going to play part of this clip because I'm so annoyed with Sanders right now. He would give these speeches and conversations where he's bashing Democrats while simultaneously boosting Democrats, meaning when it matters, he boosts them. Oh, Joe Biden is the most, closest to FDR that we've had since FDR, since LBJ. And it's like, dude, that's not true. And yet he would say it with a straight face and send a huge amount of energy that he generates because he's likable. And he tends to be right when he's talking about this economic populism stuff. But to take that energy and take that power and then dump it into a Democratic Party that no way believes that stuff is outrageous and doesn't help the cause in this case. He should be where I am and hitting that party to try to turn that party into an actual political vehicle to get things accomplished. And then he could say, FDR, he could do all that stuff. But you don't get there through support. You don't get there through support. Sanders, CNN.
Safe to say there's a lot of despair in the country over what Democrats are doing, how they're responding to this. You're an independent, but you caucus with the Democrats. I want you to listen to what happened at a town hall tonight with Democratic Congressman Glenn Ivey.
You aren't even working together on a shared strategy. And that is failure. We are not interested in hearing that you are in the minority. We know that. We want you to show some of the backbone and strategic brilliance that Mitch McConnell would have in the minority.
Is that what you've been hearing out on the road, Senator?
I think there's a lot of discontent with the Democratic leadership, and I think with the entire Democratic Party. And one of the things that I and Alexandria will be trying to do is get people involved in the political process, either as independents or as progressive Democrats, to stand up for a working class in this country, which is being hammered every single day. Real inflation accounted for wages have not gone up in 52 years, while the very richest people have become much richer. Our healthcare system is broken, our housing system, is broken. Our child care system is broken. We're not making the progress we need to address the climate crisis that we face.
See, that's the rub with Sanders. Yes, all of that's true. All of that's true. But there is no political vehicle to do anything about it. And you sending people to the Democratic Party doesn't fix that issue. Doesn't fix that issue. I want to go to my